Recently, Capcom held what they called the Capcom Showcase of 2023, where they showed off new games and projects they've been working on recently, and it turns out Capcom makes games other than just Mega Man. I guess you learn something new every day, but anyway, they did make one Mega Man related announcement, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Well, that's and the state of Mega Man as a whole right now, but without further ado, let's get into it. Ever since E3 decided to shut down due to COVID, gaming companies have decided to make their own presentations. E3 was actually planned to return this year, but since Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, and Ubisoft pulled out of E3, they as a whole just gave up, and it seems to be cancelled for the foreseeable future. This is kind of sad in my opinion, because I've always enjoyed watching E3, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. Because E3 shut down, those smaller companies that did not pull out of E3 were basically forced to make their own gaming presentations, with Capcom being one of them, which is what the Capcom Showcase 2023 pretty much was. Like I said at the beginning, Capcom showed a lot of different projects, but I'm really only interested in Mega Man, so we're only going to be taking a look at the singular Mega Man announcement, which was Mega Man X Dive Offline. If you're like me, you've probably heard of that and either brushed it off as another mobile gacha game, or you were curious as to what it was. But before I explain to you guys what Mega Man X Dive Offline actually is, we gotta go over what the original Mega Man X Dive was about, or as I like to call it, Mega Man X Dive Online. Now, I'll be honest, I've heard a lot about this game and I've seen tons of gameplay, but I've never played it because it's a mobile game and I do not enjoy mobile games. Sure, it is on Steam now, but because it was developed originally for your phone, it's not as the same quality as you would expect with a Steam platformer. A couple of times I did think about checking it out and playing it for myself, but I never was able to get into it, and recently Capcom actually announced that Mega Man X Dive Online is going to be shutting down on September 27th, which is where Mega Man X Dive Offline comes in. But before we get into that, let's take a quick look at Mega Man X Dive Online and see what it's all about. First of all though, like I said, I have not played this game myself, so if I get any details wrong, please feel free to correct me in the comments, but don't be a butthead about it. There are already tons of buttheads in my comment section telling me things like, Tooterp, you are so bad at Mega Man. That piece of gameplay you used at 17 minutes and 38 seconds was suboptimal. You are the worst Mega Man player I've ever seen, and everything you say in your videos is wrong. And needless to say, I don't need any more of that plaguing my comment section. But I'm not completely ignorant when it comes to this game, because I've seen lots of YouTube videos and live streams covering it, so I do feel like I know enough to at least talk about it. First of all, it is a gacha game, which basically means there are some microtransactions you could use on loot boxes or something similar. I'm not personally into gacha games, but I know a lot of people who are, so I'm not going to automatically brush this game off as bad or insignificant just for that reason alone. Because it is a gacha game though, there are actually a lot of different characters you're able to play as, which I think is really cool. There's not only characters from the Mega Man X franchise, but there's also characters from the Classic series, the Battle Network series, and I'm pretty sure Tron Bonne is even in this game, so if you're a Mega Man fan, you should be able to find someone who you enjoy. Stuff like that is what I like to call the good version of fan service. However, they do dabble in the less appropriate fan service as well, with swimsuit skins for characters who really should not be in swimsuits, like Furam from Mega Man X Command Mission X. Like, I understand why they're doing this, I'm sure it makes money, but come on, have you no shame, Capcom? As far as the gameplay goes, it honestly looks kind of fun as a viewer, but I've heard it plays pretty poorly and reeks of being a mobile game. The story also seems cool at first, but apparently as you play, it becomes less and less immersive and starts to feel bland. Again, I have not played this game myself, so I do not know for sure, but I might play the offline version of this game and review it once it releases if you guys would like to see that. As a whole though, it's clear that this is not on the same level of quality as any of the mainline Mega Man X games, but I don't think anyone was expecting it to be. Plus, it seems like a good amount of people do actually enjoy it, so it can't be that bad. Also, I am a sucker for two-dimensional women, so I hope Rico makes a return in Mega Man X9 or something. Again, I'm probably not doing this game as a whole justice, but I just want to let you know a general summary of what I've heard about this game and how I think most people feel about it before we get into the significance of Mega Man X Dive Offline. Because despite not playing Mega Man X Dive Online, I think this announcement is actually great and a pretty big deal. Most gacha games, when they go offline or shut down, are basically gone forever and you're never able to play the game again as far as I'm aware, so making an offline version is surprisingly considerate of Capcom, especially considering this is a gacha game meant to steal your money for anime waifus. X Dive Online also doesn't seem like it's going to let you transfer any data stats over to X Dive Offline, which is unfortunate for the people who spent lots of money for their anime waifus, but it's also a good sign that maybe the offline version won't have as many microtransactions or predatory tactics to steal your money. I mean, it might still have those, which would mean not letting you transfer your data is straight up mean, but I mean, we might as well be optimistic here. The microtransaction stuff was my biggest concern with Mega Man X Dive, so if that ends up not being a problem, I will definitely end up checking out Mega Man X Dive offline. But what are the main differences between offline and online other than that? Well, Capcom didn't really show much in their trailer, but they did claim that there are new characters making for over 100 in total, which is absolutely absurd. And I assume you won't have to sign into Facebook or Google this time since it's offline, which would be nice, but other than that, I wasn't really able to see what else was added. They did say there are 900 plus stages, which is equally as impressive as it is concerning, but I don't think they mentioned any of those were new. There is a YouTuber called TheKennyDubz who makes a lot of videos on Mega Man X Dive and went into detail about the changes he noticed, so if you are interested in that, I highly recommend you check him out because he knows what he's talking about way more than I do. With all of that being said though, what's the big deal? Why does this matter at all? Well, the main thing about this is that fans of Mega Man X Dive won't be super depressed once this game shuts down because they'll now have Mega Man X Dive offline to play, which I think is amazing and something other gacha games should be doing. Hopefully it will also have less microtransactions, which would make me personally interested in this game, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. But the implications behind this could actually be bigger than we think, because if Capcom isn't focusing on Mega Man X Dive, maybe they could be focusing more on a new Mega Man X game, or maybe they could be done dealing with Mega Man X altogether. When Capcom released the original Mega Man Legacy Collection, they basically flat out said that if it's sold well enough, they'll work on a Mega Man 11, and sure enough, they delivered on that and released Mega Man 11 a couple years later. The Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 sold roughly 1.2 million units in total, and the Legacy Collection 2 sold just under 1 million. Granted, the Legacy Collection 2 had secret artwork for Mega Man 11 in there, so I assume by then they already made up their minds, but it's still worth mentioning. Something I find interesting though is that the Mega Man X Legacy Collection actually sold almost the exact same amount of copies with 1.1 million sold, but the X Legacy Collection 2 underperformed with less than 500,000. This could be because they both released at the same time, and well, the X Legacy Collection 2 had worse games, but I already made a video going into details about that, so you should check that out if you're interested. But as a whole, the original two Legacy Collections sold about 2 million copies, whereas the X Legacy Collection sold 1.4 million combined. I don't work at Capcom, so I don't know what they were expecting, but since we haven't got any word about a Mega Man X9, I could only assume that it didn't sell as well as they expected it to, which is very disappointing because I would do unspeakable things to get my hands on an official Mega Man X9 release. But with Mega Man X Dive being as popular as it is, maybe that in combination with the X Legacy Collection's mild success will convince Capcom that we still like Mega Man X and would love a new release. This could be what Mega Man X Dive Offline is trying to find out, which is why I am going to check it out for sure. But something even more interesting that happened recently is the Battle Network Legacy Collection is outselling everything. In less than 2 weeks, the collection sold a combined 1 million copies, making it the fastest selling Mega Man game of all time. This was super surprising to me since I've never really been a huge fan of the Battle Network series just because I'm more into platformers, but I actually do plan on checking these games out now that the collection is so easy to get a hold of. What is concerning about this though is that Capcom might end up putting their focus more on the Battle Network series than anything else, which is great for the Battle Network fans, but not so great for us Mega Man X fans. Again, I don't work at Capcom, so I don't know what all they're planning to do, but since they seem to base their new releases off of previous sales, that seems like it would be the most likely. I also assume they're going to end up releasing a Star Force collection since that's very similar to Battle Network, and it would probably be just as successful, but they were probably already going to do that anyway. Just to be clear, I am very happy that the Battle Network collection is selling as well as it is just because I am a big Mega Man fan in general, and I want Capcom to focus more on the series as a whole. But it does genuinely concern me that they might leave the Classic series and the X series in the dust for Battle Network similarly to how they did in the early 2000s. This means that Mega Man X Dive Offline could be the last Mega Man X release we see for a very long time, which is a horrifying thought, but it's also why I'm going to be giving it a chance. I hope Capcom understands that Mega Man X9 would probably sell better than the Mega Man X Legacy Collection, but I'm not an expert on these things, so I guess I can't say that for certain. When Mega Man 11 came out though, it quickly became the best-selling Mega Man game of all time, which should have convinced Capcom to keep doing that, but the reviews on that game were generally not the best. I don't think anyone flat out said Mega Man 11 was a bad game, but it was clear that Capcom did seem to be playing it safe with the release of the game for the most part. Don't get me wrong, I still love Mega Man 11 and I think it is one of the best Mega Man games, but other than the double gear system, it didn't seem to utilize the technology it released on very well. Like, the graphics were great and I do love that they changed them up to be more modern, but they still weren't super crazy impressive, if that makes sense. Personally, I think it would be cool to see Capcom take the Mega Man 9 approach with X9 and release a 16-bit game that plays like the original 3. When Mega Man 9 did that, there were some people who complained and thought it was stupid, but as time went on, more and more people ended up appreciating both Mega Man 9 and 10 because it turns out they're both really fun games that were extremely well made. I would honestly prefer a Mega Man X9 that has new graphics but still plays like the original 6, but if they release a 16-bit Mega Man X9, I would be equally as excited. But honestly, at this point, I'd even take a Mega Man X7 or X8 styled X9 game just because I am desperate. Obviously, I wouldn't prefer that, but Mega Man X9 has been something I've been anticipating for almost 20 years now, and I'm getting tired of waiting. That being said, I really do hope Capcom does not rush it if they do end up releasing the game, and I would rather wait a longer time for a better game, but I'm going on a tangent at this point. The reason I say all of that though is because the current state of Mega Man X is honestly concerning. I love that the Battle Network collection is selling well, and I'm very happy Capcom is making Mega Man X Dive offline instead of just shutting it down and banishing it into the void forever, but I am worried for Mega Man X's future. I'm not an expert on these types of things, so I don't know what's going to happen for sure, and I don't want to scare any Mega Man X fans watching and have them think that Capcom is abandoning Mega Man X, but I am a Mega Man X fan, and the last new release of Mega Man X that I've played is the X Legacy Collection, which is just a collection of games I've already played. Sure, there was Maverick Hunter X, but much like Mega Man Powered Up, I kind of brushed that one off and never checked it out due to not having a PSP. Anyway, this video has gone on long enough, so I do need to wrap it up, but I think we can all agree that Mega Man X deserves more than how it's ended with X7 and X8, and now X Dive, and the best way to redeem the series as a whole would be a new entry of some type. I mean, Mega Man X is literally supposed to be the cooler version of the classic Mega Man series, but it's just slowly faded off of Capcom's radar, which is concerning to me. Granted, I do think Mega Man X Dive offline is a good start and potentially a good sign that Capcom still cares about Mega Man X, but I don't want to get my hopes up, and I also don't want this to end up being the newest Mega Man X release for the next decade. So Capcom, if you're watching this video, or someone who works at Capcom is watching this video, or someone whose uncle works at Capcom is watching this video, please understand that there are millions of Mega Man X fans out there who desperately want the series to continue and would buy a new Mega Man X release day one. Heck, I'd even pre-order it, which is something I'd never do. But anyway, I know this video isn't anything like my normal videos, and I don't plan on making more videos like this, but I just wanted to make something about the new Capcom Showcase 2023 and how I feel about the state of the Mega Man X series as a whole right now. But let's cut to real life Tooterp to properly wrap this video up. Well, that was the Capcom Showcase of 2023 and how I feel about the current state of Mega Man X as a whole. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I know this wasn't like my normal videos, but I don't plan on covering current events or news related to Mega Man often, so we'll be back to the best blank from every Mega Man game next week. Don't worry, guys. Unless, of course, something crazy happens, like Mega Man 12 or Mega Man X9, in which case you'll probably see me on the news.